Also, some more breaking news from the state of Missouri. This news out of the Eric Greitens' office today down in Jeff City. They're announcing that American Brands Corporation is going to build a facility somewhere near Columbia in Boone County, a 500,000 square foot national distribution center, and it's going to create about 300 jobs over the next several years. And apparently, Outdoor Brands is a hunting and outdoor enthusiast facility. And I'm guessing they handle Smith & Wesson and a lot of other issues surrounding that industry. So that's good news. I don't know if it has anything to do with right to work or if they were already working on this, but we'll try to get more information on that for you throughout the day. We're joined right now by John Henderson from the Range St. Louis West. John, how are you?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you?
How's life in a Donald Trump world?
Life in a Donald Trump world, as far as it relates to the gun industry, is really good.
It's good.
No, it's absolutely good.
So, but I thought I read a story that obviously people were a little more concerned had Hillary Clinton been elected president as to what might happen with gun laws, and that might have been spurring sales a little bit. Have you seen that impact in your sales? Has it dropped off at all?
Well, in the industry on whole, we've absolutely seen that impact because there's several things that drive sales in the industry, and one of the things that's been driving it for the past 8 years is the fear factor of additional legislation or the government somehow restricting our Second Amendment rights in addition to the restrictions that are already out there. And obviously, if Hillary Clinton had become president, there would have been more of a push to do that again. So there is a fear factor involved in it, and with Trump's election and inauguration, that fear factor is really subsided. It's really gone away. So the other things that drive firearm ownership are still there. It's just you don't have that fear factor.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I did see, though, there was a decision by an appeals court that basically called into question that Heller decision in front of the Supreme Court about what the Second Amendment allows. And I'm guessing that's going to end up in the Supreme Court at some point. And it specifically dealt with assault weapons and how much a city could do to ban, how far they could go to ban assault weapons. And I know that Lyda Krewson, who wants to be the mayor of St. Louis, has her own version of that bill sitting in the Board of Aldermen over there. So if people think that the threat to their Second Amendment rights is over, they would be incorrect. We always have to be vigilant about that.
Absolutely correct. Matter of fact, we had a discussion about this morning, and that you always have to support those organizations like the NRA, American Gun Owners Association, et cetera, that will fight to protect your rights, because there is always an assault on the Second Amendment, regardless of who is in office. And that particular ruling by the Fourth Circuit, I've read it, and they sort of had to twist around some logic to really come to that conclusion, because it all bases itself on what is a common civilian use firearm. Right. And they're saying the AR-15 is not, when it is by far the best-selling type of rifle in the country.
The AR-15 type rifle.
Absolutely, hands down.
If it's black and scary, it's an assault rifle. It seems like that's what the left thinks.
Well, they do, and whether they know the definition of assault rifle or not, or they just don't care, I don't know. But an assault rifle, by definition, is a select fire, fully automatic firearm. AR-15s are not. They cannot be easily converted. Converting it is a felony worth about 20 years. So you have to know what you're doing and be willing to break the law to convert one. But then again, I can convert my handgun or a auto shotgun to a full auto firearm if I had the right skills and tools and so forth. So it's just because of the way the AR-15 looks and because it's similar to an M4 and M16 that the military uses that draws so much attention.
Yeah, we talked about this on the show last week when the ruling first came down. I was fascinated to read that decision because basically they said that it's okay for a municipality to ban a weapon of war, which I thought was interesting, because if they knew anything about our history, our founders put the Second Amendment in there, not to create a militia, but to make sure that individuals were armed so they could turn into a militia in the event that they were threatened by a tyrant. And quite frankly, when that was written, a musket was the preferred weapon of war because it was the only weapon of war, correct?
There was no distinction between a weapon of war and a weapon used for hunting and self-defense. And the militia in America actually predates our Constitution, because the militia was used in helping win our freedom from Britain during the Revolutionary War. So that was put in there specifically. The militia part is sort of a preface to it, sort of justifying the clause itself. But the clause itself specifically says that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And at the time, arms meant the common arms that were available, both civilian and military, because there was no distinction. And the people is pretty self-explanatory, just like in the First Amendment when it refers to the people, it's referring to individuals. It's not referring to a state, a governmental entity, or some type of organization such as a militia.
Yeah, activist judges, and thank goodness we're going to start to fill the ranks with some people who have some common sense here before long. I hope Neil Gorsuch will be on the Supreme Court by the time this thing gets up there, and they can reverse this, because it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think they're going to manage the appeal process to make sure that Trump's next appointment is there, because right now, if it went up, it'd probably be a 4-4 tie.
Right.
And if it's a 4-4 tie, the lower court ruling stands. So I think they'll manage it so that appointment, whether it's Gorsuch or somebody else, that it'll be there before they take the appeal.
I think since we had you on the show last, and again, we're talking to John Henderson from the Range St. Louis West, the law has now officially changed in Missouri to where you can carry a concealed weapon without a license. What you and I talked about before is that if this change took place, it was still important for us to stress the importance of training. Regardless of whether or not the law gives you the right to do something, if you do it without the proper knowledge and concern about liability and other issues, that's a concern.
It's a huge concern, and in our classes at the range, we've actually seen an uptick in enrollment for CCW classes since that law went into effect. So people realize that they don't know, and they want that information, they want those skills, and you have to understand the law. There's places that you can't carry a firearm whether you have a permit or not. And you need to know that. You need to understand the liability associated with using that firearm and what you can and cannot use it for. We've had a couple examples in the past few months here in Missouri of people using a firearm to defend property. And those people are really in legal trouble now because you don't do that. You don't use deadly force to defend property. Deadly force is used to defend life and severe bodily injury. So you've got to know those distinctions, and you need to know what the law is associated with that, and that's what that CCW course is designed to do.
Well, the thing about it is, I think a lot of us, we just don't know what we don't know. So I took your advanced CCW class, the
defensive fundamentals,
right? Yes, defensive fundamentals, and it was outstanding because the instructor, who was also a member of law enforcement,
correct,
said to us, and I thought this was so important, that police officers in general support concealed carry, but because they realize that if they're in a situation and they're by themselves, it may be a concealed carry holder who comes to their defense, which is why it's even more important from their point of view that you be trained in when to use your weapon and how, and have some basic tactical thoughts in your brain about what you're going to do the minute you have to draw that weapon, because you don't ever want to have to draw it, but in the event that you do, there's a thought process you have to go through to do that. And you need to be prepared. You need to do it properly. And I feel much better equipped after going through that class, I'll just have to say.
Well, Jason teaches an awesome class, and it really gives you the fundamentals of how to use the firearm. It's not so much about the legal aspects of it. It's about the mindset and then the skill set of being able to use that firearm under stress. So just like if you're driving a vehicle and all of a sudden you have to slam on the brakes, it's an automatic reaction that you apply the brakes, you look mirrors, you look for an alternate place to go if you're not going to stop in time. You assess whether or not you're going to stop in time and hit the vehicle in front of you. You do all that in a fraction of a second, and it's all automatic in your brain. Using a firearm under stress has to be similar, because you're not going to have time to think about, is the safety off? Do I load it? Okay, let me get a good sight picture. It's all about being able to deploy that firearm effectively under stress. And so that's what that advanced training does for you. And we take that up to 3 different levels. By the time you get finished with that, you're very, very confident in your ability to use that and to make good decisions under stress as well.
Well, speaking of good decisions, I know that among the other classes that you guys are offering, you're offering like a personal defense class, maybe for people whose kids are going off to college, or you have a child who lives on their own, or you live on your own, and they're just some of those basic things that you don't feel like you know.
Right. Well, a lot of it's just common sense. But if you haven't ever thought through that process, then you're just not aware. So, yeah, the hand-to-hand fundamentals and the college protection class are a little bit different. Some of the same things in each one, but like college safety, a lot of that is focused on awareness. It's focused on attitude. It's focused on, I'm not going to be a victim. It's not firearms focused at all. We do use different tools like pepper spray, edge weapons, and so forth, things that are more readily acceptable on campuses. But a lot of it is we actually walk the students through exercises of what to do and how to use voice commands, how to use an authoritative voice. We don't say stop. We tell the person to stop if they're walking towards us and we don't want them to. So when we actually walk them through that scenarios, and it's really funny to watch because a lot of times it's young ladies that are taking it. So, we're 40-year-old men and they're hesitant to tell us what to do, right? We're their elders and so forth. And it's funny once you get them in that groove of actually telling us what to do and actually shooting us with pepper spray, simulated pepper spray, or actually throwing an actual a punch or another maneuver on us. Once they get past their trepidation about doing it, actually doing it, they really get into it, and they realize that they aren't powerless. They have a sense of power about what they can do to protect themselves, and it's just a personal responsibility thing. It's not about being the biggest, baddest person on campus. It's just about not being a victim.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I want to remind people that John and also Ron from the Range host a show called Downrange here on the radio station every Saturday from 7 to 8, right after the Annie Fry show, which hopefully people are tuning in for as well. So stay tuned, and I hope people tune in and give a listen on Saturday nights.
We appreciate it. Thanks for having us, Mark.
Absolutely. John Henderson from the Range St. Louis West. That is therangestl.com. If you're wanting to take some of those classes, just go check them out. The 314-969-9797.